Welcome back to the Patriot Party, where truth, transparency, and constitutional principles come before politics. The Patriot Party movement is focused on re-empowering we the people, restoring accountability, and putting America first through honest conversations and real solutions. America first, not America only, because we lead by example. Today's conversation sits at the intersection of political systems, voter representation, and institutional trust. Metin Pekin is an entrepreneur and researcher with a background in political economy, focused on how party structures, funding systems, and incentives shape the decisions we see in modern democracies. His work explores a core question: are our current systems designed to represent the people or to sustain themselves? Metin, welcome to the Patriot Party.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to dive right in if you're ready. Are you ready to dive right in?
Certainly am.
All right, all right. So we're seeing a growing number of Americans, especially younger voters, say they feel politically unrepresented. From your perspective, what's driving that loss of trust?
I think it's simple. It's not just the young people. I think around 45% of American adults feel that neither party represents them. Now, we call the system we live under a democracy. That needs to be examined. I don't think we can, strictly speaking, call that democracy, because what democracy means is that ultimately the power lies with the people, and those who govern are accountable to the people. Now, when you look at the real life, that does not fit the definition of what we are seeing, does not fit the definition of democracy. For instance, power doesn't lie with people because most Americans are against the current war. The president had promised no more wars, peace president, and yet there is another war. So the mandate was based on no wars, and yet American lives are lost and thousands of other lives are destroyed, which is tragedy all around. So it's not a truly democracy. And the current
But I'd
current
stop you there. I'd
yeah,
stop you there because we're kind of going into an area that muddies a little bit. So I want to get back to the whole democracy thing, not
of
so
course.
much on a political choice or, because we don't get to, we choose our leader and then the leader makes the decisions. We don't get to vote on every decision. We aren't really a true democracy. We're a hybrid between a republic and a democracy. That's why we elect our officials who then represent us. But you're right. There is a disassociation that has happened between the people and our elected officials, and that's what our civic movement is aiming to try to bridge that gap between.
Cool. Let's just explain to your listeners another point.
Okay.
We go to the ballot box and cast our votes for our representatives.
Yes.
And those representatives are not an open menu choice. They are pre-filtered by the party machine and their financiers. And if you look at the re-election rate, it's over 90% because it's very difficult to challenge an existing representative. And that's why people haven't got a real choice. They've got a choice of A and B, blue or red. And
Well, I want to dive into that for a minute because I like where this is going. I like where this is going. So we can almost tie this into something that we did, especially for the last show, I believe, because you're going in a direction that ties directly into that. So we don't believe that the Constitution was ever meant for these lifetime appointments. That's where a large disconnect is. Back in the day when George Washington and them they went to D.C. to fix the country, and then they went back to the farm. Nobody wants to go back to the farm. They get treated like a rock star, and we believe that that's creating this part of what's creating as that, the media, and many other things, are creating this gap between us and our elected officials. This disassociation. I call them dinosaurs because they become so disassociated with what reality is and what the actual people want.
Yeah.
So we came up with, the big thing is term limit, term limit. You're going to need a constitutional you're going to need an amendment because of the Article 5 and what it lays out. The qualifications of Congress.
Yeah.
So, are you familiar with our federal policy producer? Our software that we've built to use as an education tool that we're giving to the American people. We're using it for the American Institute for Civic Leadership, our nonprofit that's currently being piloted in the Louisiana school systems in middle school and high school. And you can take an idea, data set, or a problem and put it in, and it spits out Washington formatted on constitutional guardrails, transparent, AI assisted, Washington formatted legislation that's sponsor ready that is built to fix that problem. So, one of our proofs of concepts, we have 9 of them on our page: how to fix immigration, how to fix the tax system, how to fix gun violence without violating the Second Amendment constitutionally.
Yeah.
One of them was term limits without having to get a constitutional amendment. So we have the legislation on our proof of concept page, which is our AI enhanced legislative page on the patriotparty.us. So the way that our policy producer spit out the legislation that we believe will survive a Supreme Court challenge is the election, the ballots are left up to the states. So it's the Civic Renewal and Integration Act. So it's an incentive to have people that have already been elected twice go live back in society for a term and then try to get reelected. So they stay connected with their people. Now, it doesn't disenfranchise voters because if they want to write the person on the ballot, they can, but you cannot be listed on the ballot anymore by the state it incentivizes them to, and tells the public, if you're voting for them, you're voting for them kind of outside of what the Constitution wanted. But it doesn't disenfranchise voters. We believe that it'll stand up, and it's going in the spirit of what you're talking about, I believe.
Yes. Let me say this. Look, it's commendable the work you guys are doing to make the system better, improve it, and every little helps. No two ways about that. That is commendable, and it's the more we can get people involved, and the more we can make it representative, the better. However, here is the problem. And I don't want to just focus on the problems. I want to also focus on the solutions. So please
Perfect.
drag me back into the solution zone if I digress.
Okay.
Here is the problem.
Okay.
Think of money in politics. It's always going to find its way into politics. It's want to buy influence. It's always money wants to get into the politics, whether it's the industrial military complex, whether it's big pharma, whether it's special interest groups. They want to get influence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the problem is that party system are perfect host, perfect home for the money. When the money and the political parties fuse together, it becomes like cancer, becomes like a tumor. It is no longer contained to the heart of the government, to the legislature. It has spread to the media. Media is no longer independent. They've
Mm-hmm.
passed laws. It's partisan media. It's owned by a small number of corporations. Journalists are prosecuted all over the place, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Education, it's spread into education. And
Mm-hmm.
curriculum is not teaching us to be critical thinkers. Media
It's based
is,
on the Prussian. It's based on the Prussian method, which is to soldier ants, soldier bees.
thank you.
Worker
Yeah,
bees.
yeah,
Yes, I know
thank you.
it's been based on the same system that it's been based on for a very, very long time. Let me ask you this though: you're talking about the two-party system, and we talk about we like to be about solutions. So I want to ask your opinion on this. A lot of people say that in order to untrench the two or unseat the two-party system, that it's going to take a constitutional amendment and restructuring of the electoral colleges. in order to realistically get it where there could be a third party. Are you of the mindset that that's what it's going to take? Or do you think with the current system, we could do whatever it is that you think would fix it?
Well, look, my observations are this. You are, even if you had the third party in, all you need to look at is places like Netherlands, Israel, where they've got multiple parties, and here in the UK we have multiple parties.
Okay.
So what it does not take the institution from the equation between the representative and the voters.
Okay.
So that creates a bigger problem. Now, let me briefly tell you what happened in the UK. We get Labour and Conservative, equivalent to your Republic and the Democrats. Now, Conservative 1 year did not win the majority. They went into coalition with the Lib Dems, Liberals, and it was a disaster. So it does not solve the problems, is what I'm saying. And if you take Israel, the far right has disproportional influence on the policies because they want to keep the government going. Without the minority partner, the government will collapse. So the third party is not a solution, my friend. Let me
What
make
is the
that very
solution
clear.
then? What is the solution?
But solution is going back to the democracy, going back to the founding fathers.
Okay.
In his farewell address, George Washington had said, unprincipled, ambitious men will subvert the will of the people, and parties will enable that. James Madison was dead against factions. So were many other founding fathers. Now, they have grappled with that question. If you read the Federalist Papers, you will see how they grappled with that problem. And the issue at the time was that it was not a technological era. It was very low information. Communication was not as we have it today. So parties performed their role and they stepped into it to spread the message, to print the booklets and papers and whatever it is that they needed to organize democracy. We live in a very different era now. Information is widely available. You're doing an app to give people all the legislation digested through AI.
Yeah, it'll be on a website when it's
Yeah,
scaled up. It'll be on the website for the American Institute for Civic Leadership and the
yeah.
patriotparty.us. Yeah, it'll be on those two websites.
Awesome. So information is instant. We are communicating across the pond live. So we don't live in the founding fathers era. So we know founding fathers were dead against parties and they wanted the power to rest with the people. So we need to take the tumor out if we want to fix. A proper solution is to take the tumor out. And in this case, the tumor is the political parties. Now,
I,
go on.
I understand. I understand, and we also put out a bit of an initiative a few months ago about not voting for party politics. Party politics split. Vote for the candidate that's best qualified because we live on in a merit-based system, and so vote for the most qualified candidate. Not worry about party politics, but I do understand that party politics has it has a job. It was meant to organize ideas and create structure. So if we're going to do away with that, and I know there's bad to it, instead of trying to cut away the bad of that, what are we going to put in place of that?
Awesome question. Awesome question. Here is, without boring your viewers, one simple solution that I propose in Breaking Democracy's Chains.
Okay.
And I also subhead it to say freeing and fortifying democracy against hidden capture. Now, that
Okay.
hidden capture is corporations, special interest groups, entrenched elite, whatever you want to call it. Let's not dwell on the terminology here. Now, not only that we've got filtering of the candidates before the voter reaches the ballot box, we also have a whip system, party discipline. Now, in UK, we have a 3-level party whip system. You don't vote alongside the party lines. If they tell you to vote, you're kicked out, my friend. They pull the whip. And Boris Johnson did it on Brexit vote. He kicked out 21 veteran members of parliament, our representatives. And in US, similar sort of, although not as formal, similar sort of a principle applies. You step out, you will get punished. You'll no longer get the party support, funding, and so on and so forth. So the accountability is to the party bosses, not to the people. So what system are we going to put in place of that structure? Let me come on to that.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is not just filtering, it's gatekeeping to the power. They tell you how to behave once you're in the Senate, in the House of Representatives. They tell you how to vote, and that's why you get gridlocks. People, they just go on, cut it.
Well, I mean, that falls right into what we were talking about with the independent legal strategist the other day, which is tying into something else you're talking about. But everybody thinks that we're going to magically get the perfect politician. And I said, it doesn't matter who we get. You cannot fix a broken system in the broken system. If a mechanic is driving a car down the road, he's got to stop the car, get out, and work on the engine. And so we're not going to get some magical politician that can fix it within the broken system. And that's kind of what you're talking about.
Exactly. Look, I've been in business for 30 years. If you want different outcomes, you can't just change people. You've got to change the systems. You've got
Yes.
to change. You've got to change the incentives.
And if you're truly about systemic reform, the whoever wins today's party politic election is not really that relevant to what you're truly about. Because you're about generational change, and that's what we're about. We said this is a nonviolent generational movement, not something that I'm starting or finish with me, something I can hand the reins to.
Yeah, yeah. So this is what I want to get across to your viewers, is that they have the power to go on to the solution. And the structure that party politics or parties provide is for another era. It's for another era, as you call it. We're in the information era. We can do better. We can have true democracy where it's accountable to people. The power rests with the people.
Well,
And
that's why we like to use, we're teaching responsible AI use, responsible technology use to our children in our education program, using it as an assistant, not trying to replace or make the final decision. But the human comes up with the idea, the AI enhances it, then the human or humans, if it's in government, decide what's best.
yeah,
If you're trying to take people's jobs with AI, that's irresponsible AI use. And that's why and what we found is that AI is wonderful to keep us in the water and the guardrails that normally get muddied. Like, I don't care how much legal training you have, you cannot keep human emotions out of trying to stay constitutional, out of trying to stay transparent. Every business decision that's been programmed that goes through AI has to take greed out of capitalism because
yeah,
it's natural to be greedy. But if you took greed out, then trickle down economics, like Ronald Reagan said, would truly happen because that's the factor that he did not factor in. He didn't factor in greed.
yeah,
So the AI works perfect where human emotions mess us up.
yeah, indeed. Look, I first Reagan was a great leader, so that's I want to say that alongside Margaret Thatcher here in UK.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Everybody's got an opinion on it, but he did. I
yeah,
was just
yeah.
making a reference, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, but look, the point I want to make is this: we can tinker with the existing system, but without the parties, we're not changing incentives, and the parties are perfect host for this capture of the democracy. So this is what needs to happen, and it's within our grasp. We can do it. So
Now well, hold on,
yeah,
hold on. I want to clarify that, and
sure.
you may push back on this. That's your opinion on what needs to happen because what we're trying to build with this movement is we're trying to turn the world into a town square with the technology for everybody to fix everybody's problems, to have the technology and the know-how. So, I mean, who better to help fix problems than the people that are living it? One story I love to tell is how we got our proof of concept immigration legislation on our page. And it's a wonderful story that once this technology is available to everyone on Earth, if you can imagine what will happen. I was my wife. She had to get a cover up tattoo, and we were in the parlor, and the girl had a foreign accent, and my wife's like, "Where are you from?" She said, "Venezuela," and that's when it was all over the news before Trump did what he did with the leader and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, you're in the news." And my wife said, "What? How did you wind up here?" And she said, "Well, 4 years ago, I was 17, and I came to visit my brother. I was going back, and somebody stole my papers in the airport. So I had two choices. I could go home, never come to see my brother again, or I could stay here, file asylum, and never go home and see my parents." And I said, "This is broken." And so I fed it in the data points and real time spit out legislation. It's proof of concept on our page to fix that aspect of immigration and give them a realistic pathway to true citizenship. This
Yeah.
constitutional. And, one of the things you've talked about, these special interest groups, well, we have up until this point had a DC location with an educator, an advocate, and constitutional lawyer in DC. One of our proofs of concept was a healthcare bill to replace Obamacare to save the American people $2 trillion a year, because all this legislation is built on data points of what's best for the American people, not donors. It's data points. So,
Yeah.
like, it builds on, and what it does is we have programmed it in. You know how we always say hindsight's 2020. Well, when it looks at a problem, it designs a solution by learning from everything that has failed in the past. So it's using hindsight as 2020 to design solutions. So we're trying to bring everyone together, and then we have the opportunities to take anything that we want and use our pathway to press that legislation, because we say special interest group and corporations, they get 24/7 representation for years. Why can't we the people have representation on true we the people legislation built on data, not donors?
It's a very fair point, and it's like I've said earlier. I do genuinely commend you guys on that one, and I'm not against it. It is an improvement,
Oh,
but
it's just one. I mean, you spoke of something about the media. As soon as this is scaled up, the end of this year or first of next year, we're doing a fast streaming news channel on Roku. We already own all the technology, Roku, Samsung, Amazon, and then we'll simulcast out to all the social media. It's called Truth Matters News, and it is all done through independently verified. So it's not rumor mill, no party politics, not partisan. Everything is looked at through a constitutional lens, whether it be living or originalist that's debated. It is fact-based constitutional lens, because this misinformation or reporting a little piece of the narrative instead of the complete truth of the narrative and saying, "Oh, that's a fact." Yeah, that's one fact. That's not all the facts. I'm tired of it, and people are tired of it.
no, couldn't argue with that, and we're on the same page on that one.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
That's why I just wanted to say, when you're bringing this solution, it is your best solution. Now, whether we put it with everybody else in the world and that's the best, I don't know, but it is the best solution that you've come up with for this problem right now.
Absolutely, we are tackling the same thing, maybe
Yes.
from slightly different angles. But hear me out on what I'm proposing here.
Okay, I want to hear it.
Yeah. So uh, just before I start on that, let me kind of make a point, if I may, on the limitations of AI to an extent.
Okay.
Uh, well, it's not the limitation of the AI, but limitation of its impact on the thingy. One problem we have is the people, I'm afraid, in masses are not interested. We're not going to make everybody, political philosophers, understand everything, because, look, the living standards have been going down and down and down. The buying power, the buying power of your salary, it's very difficult to make the ends meet, and especially with the inflation we've been seeing recent years with the so on and so forth. So, what I want to kind of pivot back to is the party system. The problem is, no matter what improvements we put in place, we tend to be ignored by the parties, by the government, by the president that obviously is there because of his party, with the support of his party.
Mhm.
And that is not the Reds or the Blues, because we had it with every president, whether it was Biden, whether it was Obama, whether it was current president. So the solution, what we are proposing, is just like a look, see things for what they are. We are here, we are where we are because of parties. Because there is a great book by Liliana Mason, Uncivil Agreement,
Okay.
and she details very, very clearly how political parties have every incentive to demonize the opposition, because that motivates their base, that gets their loyalty. And they basically fused cultural identity with political identity and created a mega identity. So this is when I refer to parties as being the bane of republic,
Okay.
as Washington said, their bane of democracy. So
Okay.
here is the solution.
Okay.
We want direct representatives. So you choose a representative with no party between you and that representative. And that representative is accountable to you. If you want to get rid of him on next election because he betrayed you, he or she, you can get rid of them. So here is how the structure works, because your listeners need to understand, if we're taking parties out, what are we putting in its place?
Okay.
We need a structure. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah, we need a structure. Before we get to that structure, I'd like not really to push back, but you know, the parties have split us, as you said, and I say all the time. Media has split us.
yeah,
Media misinformation, and you said you're right. This generation isn't going to automatically become politically involved. You're right. That's why it's on the next generation and education. But what's going to bring this generation is we once a year, middle school and high school will have a competition on legislation for each state. Parents will be involved. They will win a scholarship, the best legislation for the state. So we'll have 100 scholarships. They'll win a scholarship for one for middle school, one for high school for each state. And then their legislator will have the opportunity to take their legislation or parts of it to Washington, and they'll go down in history for changing. And so you've got parents and teachers, civic teachers, and students trying to win. I know what we did to win a $500 dare. Now we're talking about a much bigger scholarship than that. That's going to be one of the biggest competitions in the country. Eventually, it'll be a full ride to a state scholarship. I mean, we're talking with Google right now and stuff. So eventually, it'll be a big scholarship. To start with, it'll be a couple thousand.
yeah. Now, look, I, honestly, genuinely, from bottom of my heart, love your ideas, love them, and I love the enthusiasm. You know, that energy is beautiful to see, and that's what's going to make the difference. That's what's going to make the difference.
Well,
Absolutely.
I mean, let me give you a good example, right? So I just took a trip to Washington, D.C. I said, you know what? To heck with this. I've been trying to email these people, and this guy that's supposed to be working for us, and I've been paying him to represent us in D.C., he can't even set us up. He's supposed to be going there every week to these legislators' offices. Well, you're not representing the people good, so you're done. I'm going to represent us. I flew out to D.C., and I recorded. I had 1 million people watching. You can go to X and see the videos on the page. 1 million
Yeah,
people watching our D.C. trip.
yeah,
And people were texting, well, you can't just go in their office, because I went with a hardback curriculum of what was being taught in their schools and everything else that our companies were doing in nonprofits. And I went right into every Louisiana legislator's office and talked to the staff that I needed to talk to and got the things that I needed to talk to. And I documented it all on video as I went through the Capitol. I've never been there. I didn't know. I had to wait in line, take my
yeah,
belt off, 10,
yeah,
15 times. But an average everyday American can go there and they can make things happen. And people don't realize that, because they're like, you can't just do that. And I said, yeah, I can, and watch
you
me do
can.
it.
Yeah,
Yes.
indeed, indeed. No, awesome, awesome, and that's how it should be. Every citizens, but the system can be improved, and
It can.
we it can be improved. Look, I mean, I don't want to digress, but if you look at the voting rights, it was nearly a century and a half after men that women had their voting rights in 1920. So democracy has not been inclusive. So we're looking at you're looking at making the current system much better, and using technology and educating people, which is absolutely fantastic because it can be done. It can be done. And you're showing that it can be done. But at the same time, regardless of whether it's your solution or my solution, we are going to be against the current. We're going to be not without a fight. Because,
Something's got to change. Something's
yeah,
got to give. If you look, and I always use this example, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And the longest lasting history or lasting republic in history to date is Rome. And it's about 5 times older than we are turning this year.
yeah,
And the two things that were the two of the biggest things that caused the Roman collapse was political corruption and media misinformation. What they use for mainstream media, rumor mills, propaganda mills, that is what really caused the fall of Rome. And if we as a nation here and your nation don't learn from that, we're not going to make it to 1250.
exactly. Well, look, the current president is already acting like a king than a public servant.
I mean, I give him a 50-50. I don't really get into the politics because it took me 6 months to convince people that the Patriot Party wasn't a political party and I'm not a Nazi. So
Yeah,
I don't even get into political stuff. I give him
but
50-50. It's a coin
yeah,
toss if I'm going to
cool.
agree with him or not.
No, let me say this then. Look, let me say this. Um, you want a lawyer because you're in court to represent you. AI alone won't be sufficient. If you like, you can do it, but you
Mm-mm.
want a lawyer that represents you to the best of their ability and knowledge, and you want to choose that lawyer. What you don't want is a pro bono legal aid, state-paid legal aid that's been allocated to you. And they give you a couple of names to say, well, you can choose Matt or Metin to represent you. No, no, my friend. If it's life and death for me, I want to choose my own lawyer. I want to look at the track record. I want to see what they're like. I want to, I want to look at all these things and then decide which lawyer I'm going to go with to represent me. Similar sort of a thing is what I'm proposing in terms of representatives, because democracy is crucial. Without democracy, the systems will collapse, like you said, like the Roman Empire. So we need democracy. We need democracy more than anything else. It's one of the most precious things in life. So how do we achieve it? Uh, what you're doing, commendable, and yes, it's fantastic, and I'll encourage you guys to continue with it. Uh, to the nth degree, and I will do my bit to push this forward. But here is another system to consider. You choose your local representatives without party banner. No Republican, not Democrats, just representative based on their previous track record, based on their knowledge, based on their beliefs. Even on there could be a government website that lists all the candidates in your district, and all you need to do is look at those candidates in your district to eliminate the unserious ones. You could have a simple system in place that they need 0.5% of the signatures from the voters in that district, in that constituency. So you're only left with the serious ones that's got a reasonable backing from their voters from that constituents. So now you've voted every district, the 430 representatives or so are being selected by the people, not through party, accountable to them, and these are sent to the Congress, to House of Representatives. Now, then these 430 representatives are like a lawyer defending you, representing you, are representative of each district, each constituency. Then the start of the process of choosing the president for the country. Now, anybody who wants to be a president under current constituency, same laws, same thing, can be nominated, but they need to secure a minimum number of representatives to support them. So instead of the billionaires endorsing these people, it's the representatives that represent the public that nominate their sport or declare their sport for various candidates. And the unserious ones are eliminated. Serious ones are remaining. So through the debates that you have in America with their policies and so on and so forth, we go through rounds of voting. Apologies.
Okay, so I'm trying to get the structure in my head. So actually what you're saying is we just insert another representative to represent us in the voting. Now, is this for primaries or is this for voting in general?
This is in an eye. Well, we'll obviously there's challenges to overcome through primaries. I'll come on to that, but just for a moment, assume that we've managed to we've moved on to this system through whatever means. But I'll come on to the means. It's not theoretical. It's practical. But let's just kind of see how the president is, if you like, selected. So
Okay.
you've got independent representatives in the Congress. They narrow down the list and then down to two finalists. Those two finalists choose their running mates, and like now, they go to the public in a general election, nationwide election.
Uh-huh.
The winner becomes the president and forms the executive. The runner-up becomes the shadow president, minority leader, whatever the name is, opposition leader, or constitutionally mandated by the people to scrutinize the executive, to inform the representatives on alternatives of the legislation that's being proposed. So let's say we have a legislation that comes to the representatives for voting. Each representative votes with their conscience, without the party pressure, without the party threat, and in the best interest of their constituency, their voters. Now, the alliances will be formed on issue-based, issue to issue, because you and I might support one issue, but on the next issue you support different. You support be against it. Me and you will be against one another in terms of voting. So each issue will need to now get a popular vote from majority of the
What if, let me ask you
representatives.
this, because I'm all right. So getting people to getting people to give up power is hard. Getting people to turning a system on its head, I mean, that's against the status quo. That's hard. But I feel like we probably could do somewhat of the same thing by implementing technology to make government more transparent. Let me explain. So AI has the ability. We also scan existing legislation for municipalities, find out where it's worked and what's fallen short, give some examples of what might work, and then let them figure out the best thing to move forward. It can also, in real time, if it was linked to the right systems, tell you what your constituents want you to vote for. So if you vote against your constituents, you need to explain to them why you voted against your constituents. So instead of trying to turn the whole system up, let's inject a little bit of technology into it with some transparency in it, and because they can say no to the system and they can argue it. But if you're just saying, hey, we want you to be more informed on what your constituents want, and then if you don't do it, you got to tell us why. How can you argue with transparency?
Uh, you don't, but here is a potential problem.
Okay.
Let's take the scenario that a representative votes against what the constituency wants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? How do you punish that representative.
You can't
You
punish them because you put them in there as a human to do a job. And when they swear an oath, it's to uphold the Constitution to the best of their ability. They give that leeway, that ambiguous language in there. So you cannot hold them to, well, we're not going to get any more wars. Well, that was last year before Iran said this or this or this. I don't know. I'm just saying you can't specifically say, well, this is this, so we're going to make them do this, because they're human and situations are fluid. They change.
that is correct. That is correct. I would go along with that. But let's just use a more neutral example. When the 2008 crash came,
Okay.
the big banks were saved to the tune of billions and trillions, if not
I think it was
billions, even trillions.
860 billion, something crazy. I remember it. Yeah, too big to fail. I remember it.
Thank you. So now I think every American citizen was then lectured to tighten their belts while saving the big banks too big to fail. Nobody questioned their thinking because they have a big lobby, big finance over the government. So, but that's not the point. The point is this: to vote out a representative that betrays you on any issue, you are basically going to switch your vote from the red to the blue or blue to the red, whichever government betrays you. And here is the problem. Because the tumor has spread to the media, and media and the partisan media are all controlled by the same entrenched elite, people are being polarized to
But
such a degree. It's the fear of letting other party in
I
that
understand that the people are being polarized, but you don't think making it so black and white on, well, when a representative betrays you over this issue, not putting everything and not connecting the dots of, well, why did they vote different, but just, oh, well, they betrayed me. You don't think that's polarization in itself and splitting us instead of taking a step back and saying, well, let's look at all the information instead of just doing a knee jerk, I'm betrayed, I want them out. Because we need more critical thinking. We need more stepping back and digging and looking into, is this misinformation? Is this, that's why we have a media literacy in our education program.
correct.
Because we need to be able to go in and look through and not have those knee jerk reactions so quick and those echo chambers and emotional responses.
No, that is correct. That is correct. I'm not going to argue with that. However, the problem is this: on average, if you look at the living standards, the education, and so on and so forth, has deteriorated while the technology has improved, efficiencies have improved, well, rich is getting richer, poor is getting poorer. So there is a problem. We're going to, some points we're going to agree to disagree.
Oh, absolutely, and that's cool. That's what we want. That's how we get the best solutions. We're a town square, and one of the things that really nailed it home for me was you see in the media how split Democrats and Republicans. Well, I go
Well,
out to California. My daughter's husband's stationed at the Air Force Base outside of San Francisco, and she's an artist. And she's setting up at these art fairs, and I'm helping her. And I'm talking to these very liberal artists out in California about the Patriot Party and the Constitution and education. And every one of them's like, man, that's great. That's what we need. I really wish the media would stop splitting us so much because we're not like that. We just want to agree to disagree. And I said, that's what we need to bring back into society.
agree, 100%, 100%. And look, what I would add to that, Matt, is this: the split is not natural. It is being amplified. It is being amplified by the media. Look, the Reds and Blues have got to realize this one thing. While we fight each other, we are not questioning the system.
Well, that's why I always say there's order and chaos. This is by design. I believe, now I can't prove it, but I believe we've been taken out of it. Whether it was by accident or by design, I think it's by design on purpose.
By design.
And that's why we have to educate the youth, because we can do better as a civilization, as a people. We were never, voting and being a citizen was never meant to be a spectator sport. We were meant to
Exactly.
be involved, and we have been disassociated, disillusioned, and taught that we can't be involved anymore. That's from my messages when I went to DC. You can't do that. Yes, you can.
Yeah, yeah. So we're on the same point here. Citizens are not meant to be spectators.
That's right.
So let's devise a system, a democratic system that puts the power with people.
Yes.
We all agree on that. So
Yes.
now the proponents of the political parties are saying party is the only way you could have a structure. I have just explained to you that no, we can have another structure and we don't have to have party politics. Each issue, each legislation can be debated on its own merits. And then if it gets the popular vote, it goes through. If it doesn't, it's kind of amended, modified to get the majority, and then it goes through. So we won't have these gridlocks and partisan politics for sake of it. And that's not good for the country. Now, you might say, how can we practically get there? Oh, your
Tell me,
audience
how
will
can we
say,
get there?
well, yeah, this is it. So how do we get to this no
Hey,
party system?
hold on. Read your book.
Yeah,
That's how we get there. Read your book.
yeah. Well, that's a good. Yeah, it's called breaking democracy's chains. So we've got to break these chains.
Yes.
So how do we get there? Look, the idea is very very simple. Uh, you have PACs and super PACs that pull the money from donors and strategically spend it on party candidates. And that's one of the problems because independents, very few can manage to get through the process. So,
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people, a lot of constitutional stuff. It is a not, it's not everyone's opinion, but it is a popular opinion that it's going to take an amendment to restructure the structure of the electoral colleges to unseat the parties, whether it be for an independent, whether it be just to unseat them for what you're talking about. There's a lot of people that believe that the electoral colleges need to be redone or reevaluated, because that's really what's entrenched those two party systems.
I'm in agreement with you. It's going to be a massive challenge, but nobody in power has voluntarily given up power in history.
Never
So
will.
it never will. So it's got to come from the grassroots, people like you and I. So here is what it is. So what's stopping the independence? It's the money, PACs and super PACs and primaries and whatever you call it. So why not create a no party movement? Create a foundation that
Well, I'm going to
builds.
tell you. I'm going to tell you what I see. Um, I see the two parties will never let you create that, but I do see a solution, and it's a solution for several things. But it's probably 5 to 10 years away. There is an avenue now. Obviously, it will be challenged, and I've spoken with a few strategists and constitutional lawyers, to call a constitutional convention. The states can call a constitutional convention. Now, I think a limited would be the best way to go, but we would have to see about that. I think that that's what it's going to take. We do a limited, like the Bill of Rights, first one since 1787. We use our technology and our digital platforms to where we can do real time to see what the public wants and initiate it through the states. And then the legislators have no veto power. We can do whatever for term limits. We can put in a system. Now, see, I believe, you have your people that believe in the living document, and you have your people that believe in the originalist. Right? Well, I don't believe there's nothing in the Constitution that makes me believe it should be a subjective living document, however you believe it should be. But I do believe it should be a structured living document, meaning there should be a route for us to go that's not ambiguous and going to create court challenges to call a constitutional convention, a structured route, so it can evolve as the times evolve. and it's not something that hasn't been done in 300 years. Because some of the best democracies, I think you've talked about over Netherlands, some of them are over there where they changed their constitution hundreds of times.
They have, yes, that's very true. Some for good, some for not so good. So
I mean, that's going to be with anything. It's human nature. What we do now is we use our technology,
yes,
hindsight's 2020, and we just, okay, well, this is your best option, or these are your best options. Y'all decide how to do it. You mix this or do that. And then everything's built on data and what's best for the people. And we take those human emotions and greed out of it.
very much so, very much so. I mean, look, the the there's nothing unconstitutional to have PACs and super PACs that support parties. You'll have just coalition of independents. So what they do, they basically uh, do a build a network. They raise donations and identify target seats. So once you have a structure, PACs and super PACs, that's going to get behind independence, you don't go for the whole country. So the 45% of Americans identify as being independent, not blue, not red. 45%, according to the polls last year,
I
2025.
mean, I'm one of those 45%.
Yeah, there we are. So what this pack will do, this whatever we want to call it, no
The
party,
party pack. The
yeah,
party pack. We'll call it the party
party
pack.
pack, yeah.
There you go.
So what's going to happen then is this: you have means now to support one district at a time. So, and you look at the most winnable district and you start getting independence in because now they have a chance. They have a very similar to the PACs and super PACs operation. You have it uh, with the independents. So now you are forming a national network through technology and people donating, and then you win one seat at a time. Because the change is going to come from the grassroots. They're not going to hand it over to us from the top. So,
Well, and we have a what we call our flow chart, the generational change, how we see it. We say it starts at the top, it starts at the bottom, and it meets in the middle.
yeah,
True generational change.
yeah,
It's got to start at both and meet in the middle. And we have a really cool graphic generation with a tree and generational
yeah,
change.
yeah.
It's a really cool thing on our page. But yeah, that's what we
Have a
like to
look at
say.
it.
It's going to start at both. It's got to meet in the middle.
Exactly. But the goal is to give the voters a genuine third choice, not a third
Yes.
party. Give them
Third
a
choice.
genuine third choice. And
Yes.
that representative is accountable to the voters, not to the party. That's the message. So
Yes.
that
Yes.
independent representative is accountable to you, not to the party bosses.
Well, and that's what I've said. I said, we know the system has been broken since there's legislation that the American people they need it right now. But you hear party politicians, well, no, we're not going to do that because it'll make it's election cycle. It'll make the other party look. Well,
Yeah,
that means you're putting party politics ahead of the American people, and we
ex-
put you there to do a job. So you're in
exactly.
essence not doing your job. You're in
Exactly.
violation.
Look,
Yeah.
patriotism is loyalty to the country, not to the Reds or the Blues.
Well, it's funny you say that. I've got a sign right there. It says, patriotism means to stand by the country. It does not mean to stand by the president. And that's what Theodore Roosevelt
Oh, right.
said.
Yes. There
Yes.
we are.
So I got that
We're
that
on the
right
same
there
page
beside the
there.
flag
Yeah.
and the Constitution. So absolutely. I
Yeah.
understand exactly what you're saying. And you've had a lot of wonderful information. And I will encourage people to read your book. Where can they find this book at?
It's available on Amazon, Barnes and
Okay.
Nobles, and other bookshops as well.
And what's it called?
Breaking Democracy's Chains
That's
and
right. Breaking Democracy's Chains.
correct. Uh,
Absolutely.
so let's work towards a better system. Let's do away and try to get voters to not to be scared of having that third choice because they often vote tactically because they don't want their vote to be wasted and letting other side in. So if we have this genuinely winning candidate that has got local support through signatures and through maybe donations, and then we've got this the PAC or the super PAC for the independence, whatever you want to call it no party movement fund or new foundation, networks and gets people. So all of a sudden you've got independence viable, and you fight 1-2 districts at a time, not across the country, but over a few elections you have got enough people to make difference, to work towards a more genuine representative, and you take the party machine out of the equation from the representative, between the representative and the voters.
I love it. I love it, man. Pekin. I love how you're trying to re-empower the people, give them power back. That's exactly what we're doing, and that's why we align. This is what the Patriot Party is about. Truth over narrative, gratitude over entitlement, and empowering we the people through honest conversations and real solutions. Until the next time, remember, truth isn't partisan, it's patriotic.